Alright, welcome back to Skyrim Scholar Survival. It just struck me how very quiet it is in this place. So quiet. Alright. So back into it. Let's sell, before we head out of, Windhelm here, we're gonna catch a quick nap. And then we're going to fast travel. With any luck, actually, courier will show up with the we know. What time is it? Ah, also here I can disenchant some things. There we go. These. Now I can level up. Oh.
I didn't touch it.
Hammers don't have legs.
Did you look behind the forge? I think I saw it there.
I can use the smelter.
Yes.
We have some
Now
more.
that you mention it, I think. Sorry about that.
Take some jewelry. Alright, very good. Hello.
Need some metal? Blades, helmets. Pretty
Alright,
much anything
do you
to
have
suit
any
your needs.
orcish? Aha. Yes.
Whether it's armor you need or a new
Working in
blade.
Windhelm is great.
Come see
Excuse me. I need to use this. There we go. Very nice. And then how do I...
Hermit. Blades, helmets.
I got
Pretty
the...
much anything to suit your needs.
Ooh, what else do you have? Let's get some moonstone.
If you meet anyone in your travels,
Use that. Thank you.
Cookware, knives, and other things from home. All of these little rights.
And that. There we go. Some upgrades. Right. Sell some
I
stuff.
travel. Some may call this junk. Me, I call them treasures.
Right. I sell those. That. Dragon scale. Da. What else do I not need? Okay, got that.
Thank you for your custom. If
Ah,
you're looking
And
for a
I
bit of
am
this
going
and a
to
bit of
need
that,
from you some more arrows, mainly. And anything else? Let's get some potions.
I'll see you again soon, I hope.
And
I lost
you.
my twin sister a while back.
Oh,
Have you ever
wait.
lost anyone
I
close?
didn't mean to take that.
My father
Sorry.
says we need to just get on with our lives. Like it's that
You
easy.
want something from me?
I didn't mean to take the fish. I'm sorry.
Need something?
Dirty thief.
Take a look.
I didn't mean to. It was an accident. Let me drop it. Hold on. Was it? What did I grab? What did I take? It would tell me. What was it? What did I take? What would I drop it if I knew? What? It would tell me, right?
And tools you just can't live without. Come and see for yourself.
Good morning. Take a look.
Thank you.
All right then.
Yeah.
All right. Everybody forgot. All right. Let's take a nap. Say hello to the bug. Hello.
We got some fresh.
Sure thing. It's yours for a day.
I'll show you to your room. Right this way. Enjoy your stay.
Alright, stamina.
Let me know if there's anything else you need.
Alright. On to Whiterun, quick travel.
Horses, all day long. Do you have any idea how dull?
I didn't. Did I? For some reason, I didn't sleep so long. Alright, taxi man. Take me to Whiterun.
Need a ride? Where do you want to go? Climb and back and we'll be off. You ever met one of them cats? Khajiit.
Oh, wait, the courier was on his way. Hold on. I want to at least let him give me the letter. So I left before he got to me. He's probably gonna be a bit delayed. Alright, courier man. Come on. Alright, where is he coming from?
Need a ride? Where do you want to go? Climb and back and we'll be off.
There he is.
I've been looking for you. Got something I'm supposed to deliver. Your hands only.
I can't wait here forever.
Let's see here. Yeah, got this note.
From who?
Don't know. Creepy fella. Black robe. Couldn't see his face. Paid me a pretty sum to get that into your hands, though. There's a new museum opening up in Dawnstar. The owner is asking me to hand out invitations to travelers. Looks like that's it. Got to go.
Alright. Thank you.
Sun feels good, huh?
Alright, let's read the letter. See a pamphlet. Silas Velis presents The Museum of the Mythic Dawn, a history of the cult that toppled the Septim Dynasty, inside of his very own home in the great capital of the Pale Dawnstar, free and open to all citizens of Skyrim. Nice, we know. Alright. Heading that way. Right into the night. Next time we fall asleep, that will be the time. Across the Tunderland. We did ride. Our noble steed. To flight. Oh! Well, that guy got launched. And there you go. I gotta see this. Again, fireworks. Get him, dudes. Money. Launch him. Woo! I wonder if that was never supposed to happen, but the creators are like, that is the funniest thing I've ever seen. So they just kept it in the game. Got more lands with little pockets of ponds. Hello. Broken Fang Cave. Where's the entrance? Did I miss it? Hold on. Where? Ah, there we go. Get out of here. Better name, Hilder. Alright. Into the cave.
Hello? Who's there? Thought I heard.
I'm Fireless Walker. Skeleton. Cool. So we're dealing with vampires, yeah? Go back for my sneak approach. Haha.
Mercy!
Excuse me. Oh, was he just summoning that? Mortal blood. Bloodthirst. So now if I dual wield them. I will be unstoppable. Against the Fire in Volume 1. Oh, it's Sword of Torpor. Oh, hello. Part 4. Is there a part, any other parts? Mystery of Delaware. Okay, there are other volumes. Can't read that one as of yet. Human Hot. Wolf Queen, Volume 1. Oh. Okay, so we got some reading to do. And we do have a bed. So I think I'll read as much as I can that we have here to mark out, you know, the books that I have that need reading. And then once we're done reading all the books here, the ones that I can at least, we shall sleep and encounter the Dark Brotherhood. Alright. Let's start with Immortal Blood. By Anonymous. The moons and stars were hidden from sight, making that particular quiet evening especially dark. The town guard had to carry torches to make their rounds, but the man who came to call at my chapel carried no light with him. I came to learn that Movarth Piquin could see in the dark almost as well as the light, an excellent talent considering his interests were exclusively nocturnal. One of my acolytes brought him to me, and from the look of him I at first thought he was in need of healing. He was pale to the point of opulence, with a face that looked like it had once been very handsome before some unspeakable suffering. The dark circles under his eyes bespoke exhaustion, but the eyes themselves were alert, intense, almost insane. He quickly dismissed my notion that he himself was ill, though he did want to discuss a specific disease. Vampirism, he said, and then paused at my quizzical look. I was told that you were someone I should seek out for help understanding it. Who told you that? I asked with a smile. Tician Gray. I immediately remembered her, a brave, beautiful knight who had need of my assistance, separating fact from fiction on the subject of the vampire. It had been 2 years, and I had never heard whether my advice had proven effective. You've spoken to her? How is her ladyship? I asked. Dead, Movarth replied coldly. Then, responding to my shock, he added, to perhaps soften the blow, she said your advice was invaluable, at least for the one vampire. When last I talked to her, she was tracking another. It killed her. Then the advice I gave her was not enough, I sighed. Why do you think it would be enough for you? I was a teacher once myself, many years ago, he said. Not in a university. A trainer in a fighter's guild, but I know that if a student doesn't ask the right questions, the teacher cannot be responsible for his failure. I intend to ask you the right questions. And that he did, for hours. He asked questions, and I answered what I could. But he never volunteered any information about himself. He never smiled. He only studied me with those intense eyes of his, committing every word I said to memory. Finally, I turned to the questioning around. You said you were a trainer at the Fighters Guild. Are you on an assignment for them? No, he said curtly, and finally I could detect some weariness in those feverish eyes of his. I would like to continue this tomorrow night, if I could. I need to get some sleep and absorb this. You sleep during the day? I smiled. To my surprise, he returned the smile, though it was more of a grimace. When tracking your prey, you adapt their habits. The next day, he did return with more questions, these ones very specific. He wanted to know about the vampires of eastern Skyrim. I told him about the most powerful tribe, the Volkira, paranoid and cruel, whose very breath could freeze their victims' blood in their veins. I explained to him how they lived beneath the ice of remote and haunted lakes, never venturing into the world of men except to feed. Voratha Piquin listened carefully and asked more questions into the night, until at last he was ready to leave. I will not see you for a few days, he said, but I will return, and tell you how helpful your information has been. True to his word, the man returned to my chapel shortly after midnight 4 days later. There was a fresh scar on his cheek, but he was smiling that grim yet satisfied smile of his. Your advice helped me very much, he said, but you should know that the Volkira, the Volkihard have an additional ability you didn't mention. They can reach through the ice of their lakes without breaking it. It was quite a nasty surprise, being grabbed from below without any warning. How remarkable, I said with a laugh, and terrifying. You're lucky you survived. I don't believe in luck. I believe in knowledge and training. Your information helped me, and my skill at melee combat sealed the bloodsucker's fate. I've never believed in weaponry of any kind. Too many unknowns. Even the best swordsmith has created a flawed blade. But you know what your body is capable of. I know I can land 1,000 blows without losing my balance, provided I get the first strike. The first strike? I murmured. So you must never be surprised. That is why I came to you, said Movarth. You know more than anyone alive about these monsters, in all their cursed varieties across the land. Now you must tell me about the vampires of North Valenwood." I did as he asked, and once again his questions taxed my knowledge. There were many tribes to cover. The Bonsamu, who were indistinguishable from Bosmer except when seen by candlelight. The Kier Elf, who could disintegrate into mist. The Yekkef, who swallowed men whole. The dread Telboth, who preyed on children, eventually taking their place in the family, waiting patiently for years before murdering them all in their natural hunger. Once again he bade me farewell, promising to return in a few weeks, and once again he returned, as he said, just after midnight. This time Movarth had no fresh scars, but he had, again, new information. "You were wrong about the Kierilth being unable to vaporize when pushed underwater," he said, patting my shoulder fondly. "Fortunately, they cannot travel far in their mist form, and I was able to track it down. It must have surprised it fearfully. Your field of knowledge is becoming impressive," I said. "I should have had an acolyte like you many decades ago." "Now tell me," he said, "of the vampires of Cyrodiil." I told him what I could. There was but one tribe in Cyrodiil, a powerful clan who had ousted all other competitors, much like the Imperials themselves had done. Their true name was unknown, lost in history, but they were experts at concealment. If they kept themselves well fed, they were indistinguishable from living persons. They were cultured, more civilized than the vampires of the provinces, preferring to feed on victims while they were asleep, unaware. "They will be difficult to surprise," Movarth frowned, "but I will seek one out and tell you what I learn. And then you will tell me of the vampires of High Rock and Hammerfell and elsewhere, and Black Marsh and Morrowind and the Somerset Isles. Yes?" I nodded, knowing then that this was a man on an eternal quest. He wouldn't be satisfied with but the barest hint of how things were. He needed to know it all. He did not return for a month, and on the night that he did, I could see his frustration and despair though there were no lights burning in my chapel. "I failed," he said, as I lit a candle. "You were right. I could not find a single one." I brought the light up to my face and smiled. He was surprised, even stunned, by the pallor of my flesh, the dark hunger in my ageless eyes, and the teeth. Oh yes, I think the teeth definitely surprised the man who could not afford to be surprised. "I haven't fed in 72 hours, I explained, as I fell on him. He did not land the first blow, or the last. I had a feeling, I'm like, I think this guy is actually a vampire. Alright, Argonian account, 1. Right. The Argonian Account, Book 1, by Juan Jarth. On a minor but respectable plaza in the Imperial City sat, or perhaps lounged, Lord Van Eyck's building commission. It was an unimaginative, austere building, not denoted so much for its authentic or architectural design as for its prodigious length. If any critics wondered why such an ornamented, extended erection held such fascination for Lord Van Eyck, they kept it to themselves. In the 398th year of the Third Era, Decumus Scotti was a senior clerk at the Commission. It had been a few months since the shy middle-aged man had brought Lord Van Eyck the most lucrative of all contracts, granting the Commission the exclusive right to rebuild the roads of Valenwood, which had been destroyed in the 5-year war. For this, he had become the darling of the managers and the clerks, spending his days recounting his adventures, more or less faithful, although he did omit the ending of the tale, since many of them had partaken in the celebratory Untharappa roasts provided by the Sillenstri. Informing one's listeners that they've gorged on human flesh improves very few stories of any good taste. Scotty was neither particularly ambitious nor hard-working, so he did not mind that Lord Vanek had not given him anything to actually do. Whenever the squat little gnomish man would happen upon Decumus Scotty in the offices, Lord Vanek would always say, "You're a credit to the commission. Keep up the good work." In the beginning, Scotty had worried that he was supposed to be doing something, but as the months went on, he merely replied, "Thank you, I will." There was, on the other hand, the future to consider. He was not a young man, and though he was receiving a respectable salary for someone not doing actual work, Scotty considered that soon he might have to retire and not get paid for not doing work. It would be nice, he decided, if Lord Vanek, out of gratitude for the millions of gold the Valenwood contract was generating, might deign to make Scotty a partner, or at least give him a small percentage of the bounty. Decumus Scotty was no good at asking for things like that, which was one of the reasons why, previous to his signal success in Valenwood as a senior clerk for Lord Atreus, he was a lousy agent. He had just about made up his mind to say something to Lord Vanek when his lordship unexpectedly pushed things along. "You're a credit to the commission," the waddling little thing said, and they then paused. Do you have a moment free on your schedule?" Scotty nodded eagerly and followed his lordship to his hideously decorated and very enviable hectare of office space. "Zenithar blesses us for your presence at the commission," the little fellow squeaked grandly. "I don't know whether you know this, but we have been having a bad time before you came along. We had impressive projects for certain, but they were not successful. In Blackmarsh, for example, for years we've been trying to improve the roads and other routes of travel for commerce. I put my best man, Flessus Chio, on it, but every year, despite staggering investments of time and money, the trade along those routes only gets slower and slower. Now we have your very clean, very profitable Valenwood contract to boost the commission's profit. I think it's time you were rewarded." Scotty grinned a grin of great modesty and subtle avarice. "I want you to take over the Blackmarsh account from Flessus Joe." Scotty shook as if awakening from a pleasant dream to hideous reality. "My lord, I couldn't." "Nonsense," chirped Lord Vanek. "Don't worry about Joe. He will be happy to retire on the money I give him, particularly as soul-wrenchingly difficult as this Blackmarsh business has been. Just your sort of a challenge, my dear Decumus." Scotty couldn't utter a sound through his mouth, feebly forming the words "no" as Lord Vanek brought out the box of documentation on Blackmarsh. "You're a fast reader," Lord Vanek guessed. "You can read it all en route to Blackmarsh, of course." The little fellow giggled. "You are a funny chap. Where else would you go to learn about the work that's being done, and how to improve it?" The next morning, the stack of documentation hardly touched, Decumus Scotty began the journey southeast to Blackmarsh. Lord Vanek had hired an able-bodied guard, a rather taciturn Redguard named Malik, to protect his best agent. They rode south along the Niben, then southeast along the Silverfish, continuing on into the wilds of Cyrodiil, where the river tributaries had no names, and the very vegetation seemed to come from another world than the very nice civilized gardens of the northern imperial province. Scotty's horse was tied to Malik's, so the clerk was able to read. It made it difficult to pay attention to the path they were taking, but Scotty knew he needed at least a cursory familiarity with the Commission's business dealings in Blackmarsh. It was a huge box of paperwork going back 40 years, when the commission had first been given several million in gold by a wealthy trader, Lord Xelix Pinos Ravina, to improve the condition of the road from Gideon to Cyrodiil. At that time, it took 3 weeks, a preposterously long time, for the rice and root he was importing to arrive, half rotten, in the imperial province. Pinos Ravina was long dead, and many other investors over the decades, included Pelagus IV himself, had hired the commission to build roads, drain swamps, construct bridges, devise anti-smuggling systems, hire mercenaries, and in short, do everything that the great empire in history knew would work to aid trade with Blackmarsh. According to the latest figures, the result of this was that it took 2.5 months for goods now thoroughly rotten to arrive. Scotty found that when he looked up after concentrating on what he was reading, the landscape had always changed, always dramatically, always for the worse. "This is Blackwood, sir," said Malik to Scotty's unspoken question. It was dark and woodsy, so Decuma Scotty thought that a very appropriate name. The question he longed to ask, which is in due course he did ask, was, "What's that terrible smell?" "Sloth Point, sir," Malik replied as they turned the next bend, where the umbrageous tunnel of tangled tree and vine opened to a clearing. There squatted a cluster of formal buildings in the dreary imperial design, favored by Lord Venek's commission and every emperor since Tiber, together with a stench so eye-blinding, stomach-wrenchingly awful, that Scotty wondered suddenly if it were deadly poisonous. The swarms of blood-colored, sand-grain-sized insects obscuring the air did not improve the view. Scotty and Malik batted at the buzzing clouds as they rode their horses towards the largest of the buildings, which on approach revealed itself to be perched at the edge of a thick black river. From its size and serious aspect, Scotty guessed it to be the Census and Excise office for the wide white bridge that stretched across the burbling dark water to the reeds on the other side. It was a very nice, bright, sturdy-looking bridge, built, Scotty knew, by his commission. A proxy, irrational official opened the door quickly on Scotty's first knock. "Come on! Come in, quickly! Don't let the flesh flies in." "Flesh flies?" Decuma Scotty trembled. "You mean they eat human flesh?" "If you're fool enough to stand around and let them," the soldier said, rolling his eyes. He had half an ear, and Scotty looked around at the other soldiers in the fort and noted that they were all well chewed. One of them had no nose at all to speak of. "Now, what's your business?" Scotty told them, and added that if they stood outside the fortress instead of inside, they might catch more smugglers. "You better be more concerned with getting across that bridge," the soldier sneered. "Tide's coming up, and if you don't get a move on, you won't get to Blackmarsh for 4 days." That was absurd. A bridge swamped by a rising tide on a river? Only the look in the soldier's eyes told Scotty he wasn't joking. Upon stepping out of the fort, he saw that the horses, evidently tired of being tortured by the flesh flies, had ripped free of their restraints and were bounding off into the woods. The oily water of the river was already lapping on the planks, oozing between the crevices. Scotty reflected that perhaps he would be more than willing to endure a wait of 4 days before going to Blackmarsh, but Malice was already running across. Scotty followed him, wheezing. He was not in excellent shape, and never had been. The box of commission materials was heavy. Halfway across, he paused to catch his breath, and then discovered he could not move. His feet were stuck. The black mud that ran through the river was thick as gluey paste. Having washed over the plank Scotty was on, it held his feet fast. Panic seized him. Scotty looked up from his trap and saw Malik leaping from plank to plank ahead of him, closing fast on the reeds on the other side. "Help!" Scotty cried. "I'm stuck!" Malik did not even turn around, but kept jumping. "I know, sir. You need to lose weight." Dakuma Scotty knew he was a few pounds over and had meant to start eating less and exercising more, but embarking on a diet hardly seemed to promise timely aid in his current predicament. No diet on Nirn would have helped him just then. However, on reflection, Scotty realized that the Red Guard intended that he drop the box of documents, for Malik was no longer carrying any of the essential supplies he had with him previously. With a sigh, Scotty threw the box of commission notes into the glop and felt the plank under him rise a quarter of an inch, just enough to free him from the mud's clutches. With an agility born of extreme fear, Scotty began leaping after Malik, dropping onto every third plank and springing up before the river gripped him. In 46 leaps, Demicus Scotty crashed through the reeds onto the solid ground behind Malik and found himself in Black Marsh. He could hear behind him a slurping sound as the bridge and his container of important and official records of commission affairs was consumed by the rising flood of dark filth, never to be seen again. Ooh. Alright, now a dance in the fire. Book 1. A Dance in Fire, Chapter 1. Waiwak Yarth. Scene: the Imperial City, Cyrodiil. Date: 7 Frostfall, 3rd Era, 397. It seemed as if the palace had always housed the Atreus Building Commission, the company of clerks and estate agents who authored and notarized nearly every construction of any note in the empire. It had stood for 250 years since the reign of Emperor Magnus, a plain-fronted and austere hall on a minor but respectable plaza in the imperial city. Energetic and ambitious middle-class lads and ladies worked there, as well as complacent middle-aged ones like Demicus Scotty. No one could imagine a world without the commission, least of all Scotty. To be accurate, he could not imagine a world without himself in the commission. Lord Atreus is perfectly aware of your contributions, said the managing clerk, closing the shutter that demarcated Scotty's office behind him. But you know that things have been difficult. Yes, said Scotty stiffly. Lord Van X-Men have been giving us a lot of competition lately, and we must be more effective if we are to survive. Unfortunately, that means releasing some of our historically best but presently underachieving senior clerks. I understand. It can't be helped. I'm glad that you understand, smiled the managing clerk, smiling thinly and withdrawing. Please, have your room cleared immediately. So I'm guessing this is after the Argonian account? We're looking into the future. Scotty began the task of organizing all his work to pass on to his successor. It would probably be young Imbralius who would take most of it on, which was as it should be, he considered philosophically. The lad knew how to find business. Scotty wondered idly what the fellow would do with the contracts for the new statue of Saint Alessa, for which the Temple of the One had applied. Probably invent a clerical error, blame it on his old predecessor Demicus Scotty, and require an additional cost to rectify. I have correspondence for Demicus Scotty of the Atreus Building Commission. Scotty looked up. A fat-faced courier had entered his office and was thrusting forth a sealed scroll. He handed the boy a gold piece and opened it up. By the poor penmanship, atrocious spelling and grammar, and the overall unprofessional tone, it was manifestly evident who the writer was. Liodes Jurus, a fellow clerk from some years before, who had left the commission after being accused of unethical business practices. Dear Scotty, I imagine you always wondered what happened to me. The last place you would have expected to find me is out in the woods, but that's exactly where I am. Ha ha. If you're smart and want to make a lot of extra gold for Lord Atreus and yourself, haha, you'll come down to Val Linwood, too. If you haven't had or have been following the politics here lately, you may or may not know that there's been a war between the Boschmer and their neighbors elsewhere over the past 2 years. Things have only just calmed down, and there's a lot that needs to be rebuilt. Now, I've got more business than I can handle, and I need someone with some clout, someone representing a respectable agency to get quill in the ink. That someone is you, my friend. Come and meet at the Mithra Paxos Tavern in Fallenest, Valenwood. I'll be here 2 weeks, and you won't be sorry. Juras. P.S. Bring wagon load of timber if you can. What do you have there, Scotty? Asked a voice. Scotty started. It was Imbralius, his damnable handsome face peeking through the shutters, smiling in that way that melted the hearts of the stringiest of patrons and the roughest of stonemasons. Scotty shoved the letter in his jacket pocket. Personal correspondence, he sniffed. It'll be cleared up here in just a moment. I don't want to hurry you, said Imbralius, grabbing a few sheets of blank contracts from Scotty's desk. I've just gone through a stack, and the junior scribe's hands are all cramping up, so I thought you wouldn't miss a few. The lad vanished. Scotty retrieved the letter and read it again. He thought about his life, something he rarely did. It seemed a sea of gray with a black, insurmountable wall looming. There was only one narrow passage he could see in that wall. Quickly, before he had a moment to reconsider it, he grabbed a dozen of the blank contracts with the shimmering gold leaf, Atreus Building Commission by appointment of His Imperial Majesty, and hid them in the satchel with his personal effects. The next day he began his adventure with a giddy lack of hesitation. He arranged for a seat in a caravan bound for Valenwood, the single escorted convenience to the southeast, leaving the imperial city that week. He had scarcely hours to pack, but he remembered to purchase a wagon load of timber. It will be an extra gold to pay for a horse to pull back, frowned the convoy head. So I anticipated, smiled Scotty, with his best Imbralius grin. 10 wagons in all set off that afternoon through the familiar Cyrodiilic countryside, past fields of wildflowers, gently rolling woodlands, friendly hamlets. The clop of the horse's hooves against the stoned road reminded Scotty that the Atreus Building Commission constructed it. 5 of the 18 necessary contracts for its completion were drafted by his own hand. Very smart of you to bring that wood along, said the gray-whiskered Breton man next to him on his wagon. You must be in commerce. Of a sort, said Scotty, in a way he hoped was mysterious before introducing himself. Dipicus Scotty. Griff Melon, said the man. I'm a poet, actually, a translator of old Bosmer literature. I was researching some newly discovered tracks of the Noread play bar 2 years ago when the war broke out and I had to leave. You're no doubt familiar with the Minorad, if you're aware of the Green Pact. Scotty thought the man might be speaking perfect gibberish, but he nodded his head. Naturally, I don't pretend that the Minorad is as renowned as the May Alindion, or as ancient as the Danshir Gol, but I think it has a remarkable significance to understanding the nature of the Merolithic Bosmer mind. The origin of the wood elf aversion to cutting their own wood or eating any plant material at all, yet paradoxically their willingness to import plant stuff from other cultures, I feel can be linked to a passage in the Minoriad. Malin shuffled through some of his papers, searching for the appropriate text. To Scotty's vast relief, the carriage soon stopped to camp for the night. They were high on a bluff over a gray stream, and before them was the great valley of Valenwood. Only the cry of seabirds declared the presence of the ocean to the bay to the west. Here the timber was soon tall and wide, twisting around itself like an impossible knot begun eons ago to be impenetrable. A few more modest trees, only 50 feet to the lowest branches, stood on the cliff at the edge of camp. The sight was so alien to Scotty that he found himself so anxious about the proposition of entering the wilderness that he could not imagine sleeping. Fortunately, Malone had supposed to have found another academic with a passion for the riddles of ancient cultures. Long into the night he recited Bosmer verse in the original and in his own translation, sobbing and bellowing and whispering where appropriate. Gradually Scotty began to feel drowsy, but a sudden crack of wood snapping made him sit up straight. "What was that?" Malone smiled. "I like it too. Convocation in the malignity of the moonless speculum, a dance of fire. There are some enormous birds up in the trees moving around," whispered Scotty, pointing in the direction of the dark shapes above. "I wouldn't worry about that," said Malone, irritated with his audience. "Now, listen to how the poet characterizes Hermomora's invocation in the 18th stanza of the 4th book. The dark shapes in the trees were some of them perched like birds, others slithering like snakes, and still others stood up straight like men. As Malone recited his verse, Scotty watched the figures softly leap from branch to branch, half gliding across impossible distances for anything without wings. They gathered in groups, then reorganized until they had spread to every tree around the camp. Suddenly they plummeted from the heights. "Mara!" cried Scotty. "They're falling like rain. Probably seed pods." Malone shrugged, not turning around. "Some of the trees have remarkable..." The camp erupted into chaos. Fires burst out in the wagons. The horses wailed from mortal blows. Casks of wine, fresh water, and liquor gushed their contents to the ground. A nimble shadow dashed past Scotty and Malone, gathering sacks of grain and gold with impossible agility and grace. Scotty had only one glance at it, lit up by a sudden nearby burst of flame. It was a sleek creature with pointed ears, wide yellow eyes, molted pied fur, and a tail like a whip. "Werewolf," he whispered, shrinking back. "Catherat," groaned Malone. "Much worse. Khajiit cousins or some such thing, come to plunder." "Are you sure?" As quickly as they struck, the creatures retreated, diving off the bluff before the battle mage and knight. The caravan's escorts had fully opened their eyes. Malone and Scotty ran to the precipice and saw 100 feet below the tiny figures dashing out of the water, shake themselves, and disappear into the wood. "Werewolves aren't acrobats like that," said Malone. "They were definitely Catherat, bastard thieves. Thanks Stendar, they didn't realize the value of my notebooks. It wasn't a complete loss." Ah, okay. So we have the Ballad of Demicus Scotti. Alright. Have I read Brief History of the Vampire? Volume 1? I have not, so we can't read Volume 2 yet. Ooh. Alright, what else have we got? I got that again. Another Volume 2. Dance of Fire Volume 1. Darkest Darkness. I think I read that one. Yeah, I read that. Chance's Folly. I have not read that one. Let's give that one a read. Chance's Folly by Zilmak Glodge. By the time she was 16, Minerva Lolos had been an unwelcome guest in every shop and manor in Balmora. Sometimes she would take everything of value within. Other times it was enough to experience the pure pleasure of finding a way past the locks and traps. In either situation, she would leave a pair of dice in a prominent location as her calling card to let the owners know that who had burgled them. The mysterious ghost became known to the locals as Chance. A typical conversation in Balmora at the time. "My dear, whatever happened to that marvelous necklace of yours?" "My dear, it was taken by Chance." The only time when Chance disliked her hobby was when she miscalculated, and she came upon an owner or guard. So far she had never been caught or ever seen, but dozens of times she had uncomfortably close encounters. There came a day when she felt it was time to expand her reach. She considered going to Vivek or Gensis, but one night at the Eight Plates, she heard a tale of the Heron ancestral tomb, an ancient tomb filled with traps and possessing hundreds of years of the Heron family treasures. The idea of breaking the spell of the Heron tomb and gaining the fortune within appealed to Chance, but facing the guardians was outside of her experience. While she was considering her options, she saw Ulster Moresby sitting at a table nearby, by himself as usual. He was a huge brute of a Breton, who had a reputation as a gentle eccentric, a great warrior who had gone mad and paid more attention to the voices in his head than the world around him. If she must have a partner in this enterprise, Chance decided this man would be perfect. He would not demand or understand the concept of getting an equal share of the booty. If worse came to worse, he would not be missed if the inhabitants of Heron Tomb were too much for him, or if Chance found his company tiresome and elected to leave him behind. "Ulster, I don't think we've ever met, but my name is Minerva," she said, approaching the table. I'm fancying a trip to Heron Ancestral Tomb. If you think you could handle the monsters, I could take care of unlocking doors and popping traps. What do you think?" The Breton took a moment to reply, as if considering the counsel of the voices in his head. Finally he nodded his head in an affirming, mumbling, "Yes, yes, yes. Proper rock, hot steel, Chichen, walls beyond doors, 53, 2 months and back." "Splendid," said Chance, not the least put off by his ramblings. "We'll leave early tomorrow." When Chance met Ulster the next morning, he was wearing chitin armor and had armed himself with an unusual blade that glowed faintly of enchantment. As they began their trek, she tried to engage him in conversation, but his responses were so nonsensical that she quickly abandoned the attempts. A sudden rainstorm swelled over the plain, dousing them. But as she was wearing no armor, Ulster was wearing slick chitin. Their progress was not impeded. Into the dark recesses of the Heron Tomb they delved. Her instincts had been correct. They made very good partners. She recognized the ancient spin-wire traps, deadfalls, and brittlebacks before they were triggered, and cracking all manner of locks. Simple tumble combination, twisted hash, double catch, varieties from antiquity with no modern names, rusted heaps that would have been dangerous to open even if one possessed the actual key. Ulster, for his part, slew scores of bizarre fiends, the likes of which Chance, a city girl, had never seen before. His enchanted blade's spell of fire was particularly effective against the frost Atronachs. He even saved her when she lost her footing and nearly plummeted into a shadowy crack into the floor. "Not to hurt thyself," he said, his face showing genuine concern. "There are walls beyond doors, and 53 drain ring, 2 months and back, prop a rock come mother Chance." Chance had not been listening to much of Ulster's babblings, but when he had said Chance, she was startled. She had introduced herself to him as Minerva. Could it be that the peasants were right, and that when the madman spoke, they were talking to the Daedra Prince Shegarath, who gave them advice and information beyond their ken? Or was it rather more sensibly that Ulster was merely repeating what he had heard tell of in Balmora, where in recent years Chance had become synonymous with lockpicking? As the two continued on, Chance thought of Astir's mumblings. He had said Chitin when they met, as if it had been just occurred to him, and the chitin armor that he wore had proven useful. Likewise, hot steel. What could walls beyond doors mean, or 2 months and back? What numbered 53? The notion that Elstir possessed secret knowledge about her and the tomb they were in began to unnerve Chance. She made up her mind then to abandon her companion once the treasure had been found. He had cut through the living and undead guardians of the dungeon. If she merely left by the path they had entered, she would be safe without a defender. One phrase, he said, made perfect sense to her: drain ring. At one of the manors in Balmora, she had picked up a ring purely because she thought it was pretty. It was not until later that she discovered that it could be used to sap other people's vitality. Could Astir be aware of this? Would he be taken by surprise if she used it on him? She formulated her plan on how best to desert the Breton as they continued down the hall. Abruptly, the passage ended with a large metal door, secured by a golden lock. Using her pick, Chance snapped away the 2 tumbles and bolt, and swung the door open. The treasure of her tomb was within. Chance quietly slipped her glove off her hand, exposing the ring as she stepped into the room. There were 53 bags of gold within. And she turned, as she turned, the door closed between her and the Breton. On her side, it did not resemble a door at all, but a walls beyond doors. For many days, Chance screamed and screamed as she tried to find a way out of the room. For some days after that, she listened dully to the laughter of Shegarath within her own head. 2 months later, the Ulster returned. When Ulster returned, she was dead. He used a lock to prop open the door and remove the gold. Ooh. Alright. That's a good set of reading. And is there any other book? There's that one, The Wolf Queen. But I think I'm gonna wait till next time to do the rest of some reading, some additional reading, and then I think I'm gonna read that book and then the rest of the books I have, and then sleep and let the Dark Brotherhood take me. Yeah. Again, going good. See you next time. Reading Dark Brotherhood. Alright, I hope you're liking my narration, and I will see you guys a bit later. Alright, ciao ciao.